Hello, my name is Crissel Zapatero. I'm from DCPET 32, and this is my case reflection of the interview of Wang Fugui and its relation to RA 4200, which is the anti-wiretapping law here in the Philippines. So I have my notes here of the interview, and I also have my notepad open in the computer, which I'll be reading once in a while all throughout the video. So, um, let's have a brief recap of the video itself. So, in the interview of Wang Fugu, he's a former cellmate of Shi Zijiang, and they were close friends. In fact, after 1.5 years of serving sentence in prison, he was entrusted to handle declassified files in name of Mr. Shi. Shi ang tawag nila doon. And he claims that Alice Guo was used as an agent or just an asset by the Chinese state security, and that her mayoral campaign was a setup from the Chinese. Sorry, so let's continue. As I said earlier, that she was a spy for the Chinese government. Either she was a spy for private politicians or businessmen, or China itself. It doesn't matter because she's still a spy. And he also uh explained about the offers. The alleged correspondence, links and roles of Madong Li as a liaison. He also provided statements about how this information was obtained and how Shi Ziyang had documents of recordings and how the intelligence apparatus work. Um, and let's have a brief overview of what 4200 is, RA 4200 is, and why it's important. No. So, in RA 4200, any person not being authorized by all the parties to any private communication or spoken word from tapping any wire or cable or by using any device or arrangement to secretly overhear interception or record such communication or spoken word. So it also makes it unlawful to knowingly possess or publish records obtained illegally. And there are exceptions, of course, for court-authorized wiretaps. But it's also in very limited circumstances, like espionage, treason, and others. And they also have strict conditions for this. So let's talk about now how the interview content is related to RA 4200. So Wang claimed that Shi Zijiang had a copy of certain documents or evidence about Alice Guo, which implies that there have been recordings or intercepted communication. And if these materials were secretly obtained without the consent of all parties involved, then RA 4200 may have been violated. And the law's key test, was the communication private and was consent of all parties given to the recording interception. If not, the act is illegal. Let's now talk about the possession and dissemination of the materials. So, if the recording or intercept was made without authorization, the act of possessing or sharing it with Rappler or the Senate, the Philippine government raises the prohibition against publishing or communicating such illegally obtained recordings under RA 4200. So, now let's talk about why this matters to me as a computer engineering student. So, as a computer engineering student, I may not have been involved in handling communications, recordings, or data capture. And the principle of RA 4200 for me is if I intercept or record private communications like voice, conversations, videos without full consent or legal authorization, I may classify to criminal liability. So, when I handle data or systems for clients or employees, I must ensure that any surveillance recordings and monitoring are done with clear consent from all parties. Whether it is for from court order, just a simple agreement, I should always have their consent. And the nature of our communication must not be private too, in the sense of my own protection na rin. And when analyzing or handling publications or recordings, like for example, journalism, forensic audit, I should always consider the chain of custody. Like, how was this recording obtained? Was it legal? And if not, the recording may not be usable, and the person who handled it may face liability. So I must always stay vigilant about that to keep myself safe. So, in summary of this video, the interview by Wang Fugui raises questions about whether the material or documents underlying his claims were obtained by secret interceptions or recordings of private communication. If so, then RA 4200 becomes directly relevant because it prohibits the act unless it's authorized or consensual. Furthermore, the dissemination of such materials publicly by the Rappler interview raises issues of possession and publication of illegally obtained recordings. The possible national security dimension of espionage might provide an exception, but only if all procedural safeguards like the court order showing probable cause and all that were followed. For stakeholders, including the engineers dealing with communications and data systems, this interview underscores the importance of respecting privacy, obtaining consent, and following legal process while recording or using communications. And that's all from me, Crissel Zapatero from DCPET 32, and how I reflect on the interview and the RA 4200 itself. That's all.